Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to the Business Ethics and Corporate Social Responsibility topic, Unit 4, Ethical Problem in Business and Corporate Social Responsibility. So, today we are going to speak about three main ethical problems that you can face when working in organizations and in companies. You have already seen in the previous sessions some problems. There are a high quantity of problems, different problems with different magnitude and consequences. Yeah, we are going to focus only in three main issues. Issues related with workers' rights, questions about discriminations and equal opportunities, and especially at the end we are going to say a few words about communication and marketing ethics. So, as you can imagine, these three topics are very, I will say, very extended. You can find many cases with different situations regarding these three topics. It's really a controversial issues, and we are going to present only a few general reflections, ideas about that. Let's start with respect and workers' rights. The first question, we cannot go in depth in that is a more philosophical question, but it's important to clarify what it means when we speak about respect. The classical definition of in the Oxford Dictionary, you can find there, is a feeling of the admiration for someone or something elected by the abilities, qualities, or achievements, due regard for feeling, wishes, or rights of others. That is a classical definition. But if we go a little bit more in depth in the philosophical content of this concept, respect is an attitude. It's when we act in a way that we take into consideration ideas, beliefs, and feelings of other people. We try to understand and to act in a way that does not hurt them, although we do not share their ideas of belief. So respect is essentially an attitude that means taking the needs of others seriously. That's the proposal of Richard Sennett in this wonderful book, Respect. And they say respect is something that probably from a philosophical perspective is very complex and very abstract. But in the reality, in our everyday life, everyone feel or have the experience to feel respect or to be treated in a disrespectful way. So he said, Richard Sennett said that when there is a lack of respect, the other people are not insulted, probably, but neither are they granted recognition. Simply, they are not seen as integral human being whose presence is important. Respect is not just, I will say, an explicit act of lack of respect. Sometimes respect is equivalent to ignorance, to don't pay attention. Following can definition of respect, and remember we spoke sometimes in different topics, we define respect as treat a person as an end and not merely as a means. We have a lot of philosophical discussion here and some specific traits, but we don't have time to go in depth with that. But keep in mind these few points. First, respect is not the same as indifferent. Respect means to pay attention to someone, to try to understand. It doesn't mean that we have to feel the same, to think the same, to approve the behavior of this person, but at least try to understand. So respect means showing interest in understanding each other. It means, for instance, acting with discretion in matters involving others, considers them in decisions that affect them. Probably one of the more quotidian lack of respect is taking decisions for other people without consulting or without informing them. So, don't know speak ill without justification, and especially I will call your attention for the three last points. First, be careful when you criticize people. Don't criticize people, don't disqualify people, criticize actions or behaviors or concrete conducts, but not people in general. So that is important. That is a show of respect. Another show of respect is empathy. We have to think how other people will feel. That's important. Put ourselves in other shoes. That is important. And when we treat other people. And finally, and for me it's probably the easiest way to show respect, is listen and provide explanation. Listen to someone, their demand, their claims, their aspirations, and provide explanation for that. That is respect. That is a general reflection about respect in work and in business environment. If we pay special attention or we focus in privacy and surveillance, this is a relative new issues and this is a very sensitive questions. Of course, employees have long monitoring employees, whether through traditional timekeeping or supervision. However, modern tools such as keylogger, GPC tracking, biometric system, etc., have expanded the scope of and intensity of workplace monitoring. While surveillance can help identify misconduct, improve operational efficiency, or protect intellectual property, it also risks infringe on employees' privacy. We have to try to balance between the company legitimate interest to control, to monitor, to have certain order, and at the same time respect the individual worker's right to privacy, to intimacy, etc. And for doing that, or for achieving this balance, we have to respect these 6 basic principles. First one is transparency and communication. Employers should clearly communicate their surveillance policies, including the purpose, methods, and extent of monitoring. Everyone has to be informed how he's been monitoring. Proportionality, it means you cannot request much more information than the essentially that you need, or the essential information that you need for achieving your objective. Minimization, that means collect only the data necessary to achieve state's objectives. 2 and 3 are very related. Consent, of course, the workers has or the employee should approve and should give the informed and free consent before implementing surveillance measures. Data security, the employees should be very careful with where they put the data of workers or employees, and it's important to keep that in mind, to respect this privacy, because sometimes they don't pay enough attention to where they store this data, with whom they share, etc., and that could be problematic. And finally, independent oversight. That is another key principles. I mean, establishing some mechanism such as a workplaces committee or external audits, etc., that can help ensure the surveillance practices remain fair, lawful, and ethical. So that's only a very overview about surveillance and privacy. And so last final remark about privacy and confidentiality. Of course, privacy is a basic right, and it means that I have the control of the information that it's affect to me or is my information, and I have the right to decide who have access to this information and for which objective or for which aim. And we have to differentiate 4 spheres or 4 dimensions of privacy. The first one is physical privacy, the right to one's own space, the case of surveillance camera or etc. Social privacy, that is more abstract and probably more subtle, but it's very important. It's try to control and guide the private life of workers. In some companies they do, especially for top managers. Informational privacy, as we already mentioned that in the previous slides. And psychological privacy, this is very subtle, this is very sensitive. Yeah, you are not obliged to share your private thoughts, emotions, beliefs, political opinion, etc. And some companies, don't respect clearly this right. So that's all about respect workers' rights. Now a few words about non-discrimination and equal opportunity. One question is discrimination, and other question is differentiation. Everyone is different, everyone has their own skills, and we have different attitudes, skills, competences, etc. And of course, we are treated probably differently in our work depending of these qualities or capacity or abilities or skill, etc. But discrimination means when employees are receiving preferential or less preferential treatment on grounds that are not directly related to the qualification and performance in the job. That will be the classical discrimination is based on race, gender, age, religion, disability, nationality, sexual orientation, social-economical backgrounds, etc. There are many examples of that. Harassment is a situation that goes far beyond discrimination. It's an attack, a direct attack to someone. It includes behavior that is offensive, frightening in a way that generate distress and harm people. Harassment, the classical, the more unfortunately extended one is sexual harassment, but there is another kind of harassment. And some, I will say, some subtle and insidious activities like jokes, comments, etc., that could be also very offensive, and that could be also qualify a harassment practice. We have to be very, very careful and very sensitive to all these kind of conducts. And especially moral harassment or moving. That is a special case, and that is very, very, unfortunately, very extended. The number of people who suffer this kind of situation in the workplace in Europe is very, very high. And what means exactly, or what is moral harassment or moving? Moral harassment means a communicative harassment. I mean, there is not a physical harassment, not sexual harassment. It's a deliberate and continuous verbal and behavioral mistreatment targeting an employee. The idea is that I will put someone out of the company, of my department, and I just utilize some communicative strategies, not only language also, but behavior, conduct, etc., to set aside this person, to extract from the group, I would say. They usually, in all these moving processes, we can identify four main stages or more four relevant steps. The first one is conflict or critical incident. At some point, someone starts to be attacked by the superior or by other colleagues. The second phase, the second step, is harassment and stigmatization. The victim here becomes personally marginalized and socially excluded. They are isolated from colleagues, assigned trivial or humiliating tasks, or something left without work altogether. This is the classical way of act for people who practice this harassment. Try to isolate one colleague without giving tasks for doing or giving inappropriate tasks, humiliating tasks. The third step is company intervention. When the company is aware of this situation, of this dramatic situation, in some cases they take some necessary measures. Usually is the classical measure is try to keep the person who is suffering this moving and send to other department, other facility, etc., etc. That is try to avoid that. It depends of the severity of the case. It could be enough, or probably it should be necessary taking more dramatic or more drastic decisions. And finally, seeking help and diagnosis by the people who suffer that. It's important to be aware that people who suffer this kind of situation, at the beginning they have some doubts about the situation, and sometimes they blame themselves for this situation. That is very dangerous. That leads to depression, in some cases to suicide, and that is very, very sad. So the important here is that colleagues and superiors or whatever who see this kind of situation, they immediately call the attention for that and take a certain measure. Especially the person who is suffering this situation, they need, I would say, emotional support. They need to be protected for this situation. There are many books, articles about that, but also some documentary films and movies that are quite realistic, I will say. So, and finally, a few words about marketing and communication. The key point is, what are the ethical issues when a company publishes their product, or what kind of ethics is in the strategy that this company developed to communicate their product or to sell their product. Here, the key point is that the consumer has a right to be treated fairly, not to be cheated. That will be the basic assumption. I mean, you have to respect the dignity of consumers, and the first step is not to lie, not to cheat. What are the basic idea? The basic idea is this fair treatment between consumer and sellers will be one that increases people's real freedom. I mean, the people has the right to decide freely what to consume, what to purchase, or what service to buy. For that, you need two things. One is quality of information. You have to have really adequate and accurate information of the product that you are purchasing. And of course, not false information, but not also insufficient information. And the second is the real capacity for choice. If you have, I will say, a variety of products or marks or companies that offer some products, and you can choose one or another. And of course, the ability to understand the real implication of a product. I recommend you to read carefully this American Marketing Association Code of Ethics, because there you can read and you can identify the basic ethical criteria for how to communicate, how to make advertisement of some specific product of services. The American Marketing Association is the most well-known and prestigious professional association for marketing and communication, and they have a high quantity of publication and material related with that I recommend you to read. It's very interesting. So that's all what I wanted to present for these three main issues. Of course, there are many examples of different situations that related with these three ethical issues. But yeah, that is all for this class, and I hope we see Val again. Okay, thank you for your attention.